Okay,
you have no choice.
Okay, team.
You are quick to
We are going to start right now. So may we have your attention. I'm not going to waste much time. Here comes Abby, who's going to talk about platform engineering. So please welcome her.
Hi everyone, my name is Abby, and I am a tester since 2012 and have had lots of titles over the years, and currently I work in the platform engineering space. And I want to talk a bit about why I don't actually think my focuses and my intentions as a tester has actually changed all that much, despite changing titles and changing focuses over the years, and why you might get some benefit from looking at platform engineering as well. So the reason I think that I've been able to change titles over the last 10 plus years, from QA to DevOps to SRE to platform engineer to principal engineer, without actually changing, or with having quite a flow in the work that I've been doing, is because quality is part of a larger ecosystem. Quality is not just writing automated testing, it's not just talking about requirements, it is an ecosystem of what kind of benefit do end users get from your products. And in my opinion, platform engineering is just a newer addition and a newer phrase that works within that ecosystem. And understanding what platform engineering is and what it can offer can do a lot for thinking about quality in the perspective of your organization and your product. Now, you might not care at all about this. You might see platform engineering and go, A, never heard of it, or B, whatever, it's a new thing people are talking about, I don't need that in my life. So I'm going to try and still have you enjoy this talk by offering 3 reasons why, even if platform engineering isn't that exciting from the offset for you, you might still get benefit and enjoy this talk. So you might have a selfish reason, you might have an opportunistic reason, and you might have a career path reason for wanting to listen to this. For the selfish reason, I'm going to go through a little bit more of what I mean by platform engineering and how we got there. And selfishly, why QAs should really understand what platform engineering can provide as an organization, and then can benefit the work that you do. For the opportunistic reason, I'm going to talk about how QA and testing and quality can be built into the platforms that these platform engineers are building, and how you can create service offerings to reinforce what you want to achieve in the organizations that you work in. And for the career path reason, there's an old saying, with every new hype cycle comes a raise, right? You just change your title from ops to DevOps, from DevOps to SRE, gives you a raise. Now, I don't love that, I don't think I agree with that, but you can't say it's not true. And I think that at the end of the day, platforms are complex things that need quality themselves, and there's a crazy amount of opportunity that is coming right now and in the near future for how we can build quality into our platforms. And I think that the people in this room can be some of the best people to get involved in that. So hopefully that will keep some of you on the edge of your seats. So jumping straight into the selfish reason. So internal platforms allow for an easier access to any necessary toolings inside your organization. So you can think of when you need access to a SaaS product or to a test environment or to something else, how do you get access to it? If it's kind of a pain, if it has high friction, there's an opportunity to improve that. And platform engineering should be focusing on reducing that friction and improving the ability to get access to the tools you need to do your job well. To understand why this is different than maybe what you've experienced today or to date, we have to talk a little bit about the history of DevOps. And what this starts with is dev and ops, or the wall between. So this is where the teams that are producing the software and the teams that are supporting it in production are different. There are teams that are writing software code in languages like Java, and Python, PHP, Golang maybe, Rust if you're really cool kids. And then they create their software, and someone else has to figure out how to make that scale to the thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of users who want access to the features that software provides. And that would be ops. In this world, if you needed access to something that you didn't already have access to, for example, a new test environment to run a performance test on, or a new tool because you wanted to introduce a new type of testing like contract testing, What would you do? You'd make a request to the team that manages those kinds of centralized tools, and you'd wait and hope they bring it back to you. And you don't know how long that will take to get back to you. You don't know if it'll be fit for purpose. And it's just kind of a hard back and forth process often. We didn't like that, so we improved things. We went to DevOps. In the DevOps world, you have humans who know how to build and run software working towards the same end on the same team together. This might be one person who has to learn everything, or it might be a team that has a set of people that cover all of the bases that you need. But either way, you have a team that is in charge of building and running the software. And this is great because all of a sudden you can get what you need when you need it. Your team has full autonomy. Until all of a sudden you have an organization where you have many, many teams all doing this themselves. And so your organization all of a sudden has tens, maybe hundreds of different teams, maybe thousands, all trying to create databases and test environments and contract testing and performance testing tools and all these things in a secure, compliant, performant way. And that's all hard work. And none of it is actually why your customers pay your company, which then in turn pays your salary. So we need to think about all that duplication of effort. And also, a lot of people just don't want to learn all the way across all of those topics, right? That's not what they want to focus on. They want to focus on application development. And so in this world, each of the teams are able to create anything they want, but it means that you're going to have these different pieces and there's going to be duplication. So it means that you end up climbing this learning curve every time that you want to introduce something new. You have to learn how to create Docker images. You have to learn how to deploy those and orchestrate them with Kubernetes, maybe. You have to learn how to investigate what tool you should choose for queuing and what tool you should use for caching and things like that. And that's tough. So the next step in this evolution is platforms. In this world, we have a team which is able to build an internal self-service and on-demand offering that can give access to the tools that you need. You are not bound to use it. This is one of the differences between that dev and ops world and platform world. So if they don't have access to the tool that you want to use, you're welcome to go off and build it within the constraints that your organization sets for security and compliance and other constraints. But what you can do is you can have sensible defaults and opportunities within the scope of the organization provided by a platform. So this is similar to saying that AWS or GCP or any of the cloud providers, they have a lot of offerings, and you can probably solve any problem you have with piecing together something from them. That doesn't mean they're perfect for every single challenge, and so you may go off cloud at some times or combine multiple clouds to get the perfect experience. Those are just platforms. They're just not platforms built for your organization's specific needs. And so what platform engineering is bringing that experience into your organization's bespoke needs. So in a world where you need a new environment or a new tool, hopefully it's something the platform already offers on demand, and you can just make an API request or use a forum on an internet, make a request and get it right back, just like you would any other product as a person. And if you don't, you can get access to a roadmap, add it to the roadmap, and potentially you can still use DevOps principles to build your own until it becomes available on the platform. But hopefully it'll be available there. So with that description of how we get from DevOps to DevOps to platform engineering, we'll look at an actual definition of platform engineering. So a platform is a product that serves or enables other products and services. That's sort of like the dictionary definition, right? So then internally, low-level platforms provide a collection of business and or technology capabilities that other products or services consume that allow them to build on top of them to deliver their own business capabilities. So basically, we're changing the relationship between teams that provide internal services from being the gatekeepers and the owners to being a product team that happens to have colleagues as their end users. That's the big difference. So I've been building platforms for, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years now. platforms are not a new thing. They're just a buzzword now because someone in a marketing team somewhere found it. And so I've been building these platforms, and I have been on a team that was actually called a platform team since 2018. That was my first official platform team. But before then, I think I was on teams that might have been called that had they been formed today. And some of the work that I would do, I would help upgrade servers to the correct versions. I would be creating things like infrastructure, things like databases with infrastructure as code, so using languages like Ansible and Terraform and things like that. I would debug things for people. Basically, when someone had a problem with their application or their CI/CD delivery pipelines, I would get called in and help out, or my team would. And I would research new tools for the organization. So someone would say, I want to use Mongo. And we'd be like, what do you mean by that? And I'd be like, I would like a database that isn't SQL. And we're like, okay. And then we'd have to think about, okay, so you want, let me hear your needs, and let's figure out how we give you access to the type of technology that you need, not just that tool you have to do a scene on an ad group somewhere. So these are the things that I used to do, which are quite strange. One of my former colleagues used to call our team the drip tray of technology. Basically, anything that other people didn't actively pick up, that was really what we did, right? And so some of the user experiences for the platforms that I built, in some cases, the platforms met that definition of platform engineering, where they were on-demand access. So we had these amazing test environments that people could build. They would run one command and they get a test environment that ran a virtual machine and a mini Kubernetes cluster, and together that would present them a kind of production-like environment. It was preloaded with data, and it gave people the chance to test their code effectively on branches. That was on-demand, self-service. No one had to talk to our team to get access to that, because we had coded it in that way. That was great. But many of the actions were self-service in a different way. They were self-service as code. So these were things where we had created templates that people could read and could benefit from. So this might be like a Helm chart, if you've used that, where you can sort of add in some YAML to configure it for your liking, or a Terraform module, if you've ever used one of those. These are ways how in each language you can create a template that people can reuse. And we would make these templates, and we'd be like, self-service, y'all. It's right here. And then everyone would look at us and go, what language is that? What? Can you help? Or, almost more dangerously, they would just copy and paste from somewhere else in the code base, and then you never knew what was happening. So, yes, it was technically self-service. Yes, people could do things without our help, technically, but it was difficult if you were not deeply entrenched in the technologies that we were using. And if I'm honest, most of the actions that we were doing still had a heck of a lot of the manual human Turk behind the scenes doing things. So we had Jira tickets was the tool that we used. People would make a request, and someone from our team had to come in and do something about it. Often our team did have little scripts that we could piece together and rely on to reduce the human error and to increase the speed that we could respond with. But these were not things that we could give to people outside the team. They either required permissions or understanding that just wasn't reasonable for outside of our team. So the experiences that we were building were that we were forcing people to use our platform. There was no going off platform. And the experiences were not lovely. There were some good ones, but a lot of them were really challenging. So we returned to this idea of the platform definition, where what we're trying to do is enable and serve our customers. And we were, but I'm not 100% sure we were serving them in the way they'd like to be served, right? And so I'm going to extend the definition a little bit more about platforms and talk about platform engineering, the building of these experiences, where you're targeting frictionless, self-service developer experiences, where you're trying to talk about increasing productivity, reducing cognitive load, and improving the standardization across your organization, which improves compliance, security, performance, transferability across teams, and so many more things. So while I would say that I have had that many years of building platforms, I would say that you, as consumers of that platform, I assume most people here are consumers rather than builders, should be asking for platform experiences that actually improve and support your building rather than just something where you can throw a ticket in and maybe one day get something back that hopefully helps you. So, just to kind of hammer home the idea of why, one of the most common things that comes up at this stage is people go, but at the end of the day, platform engineering is just a centralized ops team but done well. Not 100% wrong, to be fair. Marketing teams would be upset. They're making a heck of a lot of work out of making platform engineering exciting. But honestly, it's the done well part that is really key to why there's this new term gaining popularity. So I make a little bit of a joke about how it's a bit of a hype cycle, but let's look at why platform engineering fundamentally changes the perspective of an organization that has done central ops for a long time. So in the central ops world, the team that is working on this is focused on reducing their own toil. When we templated things, when we automated things, we did that because we were sick of answering questions. We didn't really do it thinking about the other side of things and thinking about the users. Sure, we did a little bit, but that wasn't our main focus. In platform engineering, it's all about thinking about the user. What is it that they need? And does that mean that we need to automate to get there? In a world with central ops, we can request a service through usually something like a queue. So there's usually either a ticket or a pull request, which adds people, creates some sort of lag and reliance on a human to review things. Versus in platform engineering, we're focusing on that self-service aspect. You don't know if someone's going to need something at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. You don't know if someone's going to need 10 of them in a day or 1 of them a year. What you want is that when someone needs something, they have access to it without needing to rely on you and humans in your team. For requests for a new offering in the central ops world, it's a backlog item. Whether or not that gets prioritized may or may not be within the control of the actual team working on it. It might be with some manager above them, or it might be. But either way, it's a backlog item that you're just hoping that will get picked up. In a world of platform engineering, it's a feature request. Subtle difference to talk about the fact that there's an increased focus on how this is going to impact your user base. And so sometimes, if you've worked on customer-facing features, sometimes you do a feature that you're like, this is not important, but it's going to make everyone so happy, and that's going to mean everyone's going to post about us on social media, and then we'll get more customers, and then we can work on the things that actually matter. Same thing goes. Sometimes people are asking for things in your organization that you look at and you go, that can't possibly be the most important thing in the organization. But when you treat it like a feature request, and you treat it like a customer request, you sometimes have other reasons to pick up that work than just pure kind of like cost-value conversations. And finally, in the central ops world, success is a stable infrastructure, and in platform engineering, success is increased business value. Those don't have to be at odds. Businesses often are valuable because they are stable, because they are reliable, because they are resilient. But at the end of the day, your focus is not just on stability, it is on business value. And you need to think about how to deliver those things for it. So this is why there has been an influx in conversation around this new term of platform engineering, because there's a need to change the perspective of people in the industry from this central ops world to this new kind of customer-focused platform engineering world. And at the end of the day, platforms are software, and so they get engineered. We need to be able to explore the user needs. We talk about platforms as a product. We need to be able to build and run that software. So this is where we're not saying we're going to create a database for you and then give you the database and you deal with it. We're going to manage the things that we run and build, and then you can use them as a service. Me as the platform person. And you need to create these clear boundaries of support across them. So what is it that the users of the service need to manage, and what is it that the creators of the service can provide? So I said that I was going to talk about why you might care about platform engineering from a selfish point of view. What I want to say is that you, as consumers of a platform, should be selfish and ask for what you need. Platform engineering, if that's being talked about at all within your organization, is about supporting customer needs. So demand a better experience. Demand what you need to be able to be self-service. Tell your team how having access to a code repository that you don't understand and you don't want to understand is not self-service. It's a step above complete blindness of a JIRA ticket request, maybe, but in some ways it's a step backwards, because now all of a sudden you have to learn a whole new language rather than do the job that you were hired for and create the business value that you were hired to create. So expect self-service, expect on-demand, expect better of your platform experience. More concretely, you should be able to ask for visibility into a platform roadmap. This is not about being able to ask for a date that something is available. You wouldn't want to give that to your end user customers that are outside the organization, so you can't ask for that and expect that from your platform engineering teams. What you can ask for is near-term goals, mid-term goals, and long-term goals. You can ask about the vision for the platform, so you can understand the direction of travel that they're going in, and therefore you can start to make decisions as a team about where you should apply those DevOps principles of build what you need and have autonomy, and where you can wait to rely on the platform offerings as they come. You can also ask that common requests should be able to be self-service and on demand. You shouldn't have to make a pull request. You shouldn't have to depend on a teammate or a colleague of yours not being on holiday to get access to something. That is what you should be asking for from your team, with respect. Always with respect, just like you'd like your customers to ask you for things with respect. But that doesn't mean you can't be stern in what it is you're looking for. So try and find ways to be able to ask for things, to get the team to realize that being able to ask for things and get them back without human intervention is such a high value to you as a user, and push for that. And finally, you should be able to ask for that shared responsibility model. So in a world where you have a database for your application, who's in charge of upgrading it? I don't know. And in a world where that database is maybe in charge of being upgraded by, or maybe you rely on some code, shared code, like a shared library, and you want to extend it, or you want to upgrade it, or you want to do something with it, who's in charge of that? Who's in charge of these things? Who has ownership over it? Who has responsibility for it? Making clear what that is. This icon is from, or this graphic is from AWS, I believe, the cloud provider, and is one of the clearest examples of this is how they talk about security. If you're ever doing a compliance and you're in the cloud, this is lovely, because what it says is you cannot guarantee, as a consumer of the cloud, guarantee physical security, because you don't even get to know where our data centers are. But you know what? We'll promise you these things about your physical security. But now when it comes to security of the thing you're using, you have to configure it correctly. That's on you. And so they make it really clear where the ownership lies. And you can expect the same thing from any internal platform. So I might have gotten some people to think about how they can lean on and request and get value from platform engineering if they want to be selfish consumers. It's not a bad thing. But if not, maybe as quality professionals, as testers, you want the opportunistic reasons. You want to be able to take your message of quality and bring it to your organization. You want to disseminate those quality principles, practices, and tools to your organization. And if that sounds interesting, that's what this section is about. So in 2019, a book called Team Topologies was released. This is one of those books where when you read it, you go, yeah, nothing new, except everything new. Because what they did was they were able to codify some of the words and the language that a lot of us were seeing as patterns, but we really benefit from having a shared language around it now. And one of the things that they created a shared language for was the type of work a team does, and that was split up between stream-aligned teams, enabling teams, complicated subsystem teams, and platform teams. But the other thing that they did was the interaction models. So these are how do the teams work together. They can collaborate, so they can work hand in hand. They can facilitate, which is more of like a scaled collaboration. This is going to be through things like documentation and workshops and support in that way. Or they can provide a service where they actually don't interact other than through that kind of customer, producer, consumer relationship. And what you can see here at the bottom is there's a common evolution of these. You can't just create a service and expect everyone to love it. You have to first collaborate to understand the use case. Then you can go to establishing facilitation, so stepping away a little bit, but still being close, until the point where you get to an actual service. We've been there. We've done that. Quality professionals do this all day, every day, where we talk about building quality into the teams we work on, through collaborating with the engineers and collaborating with the product team members and the UX team members and everyone else to think about what does quality mean in their perspective, and then start to facilitate quality across the team and the organization. And finally, what I hope you'll do with platform engineering, if you don't already, is start to make services around quality. And so we start by testing ourselves and figuring out the risk, identifying opportunities for improving the quality and design, and then work with the team to create a plan for that. Sorry, I forgot I had good bullet points for this. And then hopefully what we'll be doing is building tools and processes to support that. So automation frameworks and checklists for approval of stories and things like that. So an example of where you might benefit from a platform offering as a user and from a quality perspective is a test environment as a service. If you don't already have something like this, can you imagine a world where you can use a command line tool to say, create me a test environment please, and make sure it's on this version of the application, and can you make sure that it's available to me for a day, or a week, or a month, or however long you need it. And then it goes, sure, here you go. That's the URL. Here's how you can get to it. Oh, and by the way, you can view the configuration files and the logs locally, and here's where you can go get them. Here's where everything you need to do a test environment is. So if you have tools like this, tools that are giving features and capabilities to your teams, you can be really opportunistic about how you disseminate quality into this message, into the tools you're doing. Codify the quality aspects that you care about into the tools that the platform engineering team is already providing. Offer tooling that enables quality. Create a way to create test environments easier, people will use them more. That might mean longer-lived feature branches. So maybe you make it so that you can't have a test environment for more than a day at a time to try and encourage people to use test environments and move on. Get more code merged. How to think about how the principles around the tools you provide engineers change that quality messaging. So what you really want to try and do is figure out how to offer as a service quality aspects and capabilities for quality. So things like building in linting tools and other code quality tools into the way that CI/CD platforms are run, building in things like mutation testing, chaos engineering, observability, and test environments. These are all, some of them are standalone capabilities, some of them are ways to be built into other capabilities that your organization may benefit from. So, in a world where, sorry, if I go back for a second, in this world, what you might be doing is adding whole new services to people, adding a step in people's CI/CD pipelines to manage mutation testing, or adding the capability of providing a test environment. But it's a pretty high bar to provide this level of service, and so you don't have to go to that level of service right from the start. You can actually also look at building things into existing services. So can you create templates and configuration things that can go into the services already provided by your platform engineering teams? This is a way to hook into the work already being done within your organization, but to create that quality culture. And continue to evolve offerings. So not just extending them, but evolving with them. So can you create, for example, those test environments and data sanitation strategies? So how do you make sure you seed a database that has data that is realistic enough, but safe to be used? How do you make sure that you bring telemetry, which is the basis of observability, you can hear more on Thursday, into everything that the organizations are doing, right? And how do you make it really easy for people to be able to raise an issue? Can you create a button in your test environment that's like, bug found? And all of a sudden it automatically grabs all the kind of metadata about the environment and about the system that they're testing, that you are testing, and throws that in with the bug report that you're making. These are things that are going to increase quality and build quality into the platform you're delivering. So the final reason that you might care is career path. Platforms are growing as a domain, and they require testing. Platform engineering and platforms are, in some cases, being called vendor engineering, because a lot of the work that I have done as a platform engineer myself, and that platform teams are doing, is piecing together all of the different products that the organization uses into an experience for the engineers and for the delivery teams. But it doesn't mean it's any less complex. Some of the most senior engineers in your organization are probably working on this. And if they're not, you probably feel the pain of it. Piecing these things together is really difficult to create a coherent story and a coherent value. And so it's the same as any other software. It has a delivery lifecycle, and it requires holistic testing. It requires thinking about the requirements, it requires getting feedback through testing as well as through production, and feeding that into the system as you go. These are things that we all know as software testers very well, and we can apply them to another domain, platforms. Platform APIs, they require testing. You need to do the user research up front, the unit testing of any business logic in the API. So for example, if you have to have all your databases be encrypted, it's no different than a requirement that when someone sends you an email address, it has to have a valid email format. It's just a different requirement. It's the same quality concerns that you have. You're going to have to user acceptance test that experience, and you're going to have to know how it's actually working in the hands of your users and test in production. I'll talk to you about testing in production later if you want. So, as test engineers and specialists, think about broadening your career opportunities. This is a relatively unexplored domain, especially when it comes to people other than scripters or DevOps engineers or platform engineers or whatever term you might use. And so there's a lot of opportunity to grow in this. And we have an opportunity, you have an opportunity, to define what quality means when it comes to platform engineering. When you think about the ability to define quality at the software level versus the infrastructure level, it's so much easier at the software level. That's where we've had the majority of our focus. We're getting better at infrastructure. Platform engineering is light years behind infrastructure even. And if you've ever tested infrastructure, you'll know that means something. So how do we test the quality of platforms? We need professionals who know this space, know the domain of quality and of testing to step in and help us to figure out what is the gap and how do we fill it. So how can you do that? You can upskill in platforms and in the idea of platforms. So you can explore infrastructure, test automation, you can get comfortable with things like the command line, and join communities to have a chat about this stuff. And the best way I've always found to learn is to start actually trying to apply it. So create little helper tools for yourself. What do you do often enough that if you were to spend a bit of time writing a little command line tool to do it would give you benefit that maybe you could then pass on to your teammates? That maybe then you could bake into your CI/CD pipeline. That maybe then you could bake into all CI/CD pipelines at your organization. It just can grow like a snowball. The other thing is you can focus on the platform at your organization. So you can start doing informal or formal code reviews of what's happening with your platform so you can understand how the development lifecycle works in your organization. You can start to think like a user researcher. So if your internal platform team is not currently asking your team questions, how can you generate data for them from your team and pass that back to them in a way that they can apply it to the organizational platform building? And you can have an explore of the different backlogs and team charters around the organization to understand where there's overlapping opportunity to build common capabilities into a platform and get that benefit that platform engineering aspires to provide. So, in summary, platform engineering is not testing, and yet I'm talking at a testing meetup. I get that. This is just another hype cycle. They're going to come, they're going to go, they're going to continue needing software testing. And platforms are an unexplored and historically underinvested in domain. So why would you want to go into a domain that would be the true characteristics? Well, while platform engineering is not testing, quality is part of that ecosystem, and it depends on platforms, and you can have an influence and benefit from them. And while this is just another hype cycle, there's a reason why hype cycles happen, and it's because there's nuggets of value that are worth digging to get to. But sometimes it takes digging. Hopefully I've highlighted some of those for you. And while platforms have been unexplored and historically underinvested in, they're not anymore. And quality professionals are made to explore these new domains. We are explorers by nature, and we can come into this domain that has a lot of rough edges and a lot of question marks still, and we can start to define it and start to improve it. So thank you.
So it's question time. Who has a question? free beer.
That's what I have
You.
Without freebie. Alright, so I have a question regarding your slide with the central DevOps and the platform engineering. If you can go back, please.
I can. I think. I have to remember. Oh, there we go.
Works
We got it.
only once.
There you go.
Yeah, so here in the central DevOps, you mean a new request for a new feature as a backlog item. What is the difference compared to platform engineering as a feature request? Because somehow you need to define your requirements, and technically, in my opinion, it might be a backlog item as well. I mean, like a Jira ticket with the specifics. So what is the exact difference in that case?
It's a very fair question. So this is the way in which the team this is the way in which the team manages that request and thinks about it. So in a world where you're in central ops, it's probably kicked to the back of the list. It's then added to the bottom of the list, unless someone comes pounding and screaming and says, "Move it on up. I need it right away." And then maybe it'll move up the list. But it doesn't really get thought about other than it's a new request and it gets thrown in there. With a feature request, what you hopefully will have is a treatment of this like a product, where you're thinking about, that actually sounds quite familiar and similar to these other requests we've had. I wonder if we take all of these needs from these different teams and we pull them together into one feature that can give the benefit to all these different teams. And so, therefore, you're no longer thinking about things as like a first in, first out kind of backlog. You're thinking about things like a feature that you can evolve and treat like a product and treat your users. Does that make sense? It can be a little hand-wavy, I get it.
Kind of.
Exactly.
Who else is brave enough to ask a question? Yeah.
Yeah, that's for David. Thanks. Thank you very much. So, I'm not sure if this is the correct question to ask me, but I will ask it anyway.
There's no wrong questions.
We got a platform team, but sometimes I feel like that they are more like an incubator than a platform team.
They were like what? I'm sorry?
An incubator.
Incubator.
For projects.
Yeah.
Basically, every fiscal year we have to start over the know-how share and the learning for the colleagues, because we have to rehire new people. Because basically, what they create has so much value for the management has a review over that, and they pick some, and they said, okay, now we are going to sell this and sell this and sell that one. So we have to rebuild the team again and again and again, and it is good for business, but not for my testing teams, because they are all a little bit held back with this change every time. Do you have any experience with this, or do you have any same situation?
I want to make sure I understand what you're asking before I try and answer. So you're saying that you have a team that your organization calls a platform team.
Yeah.
However, that team is creating. They create like products essentially, and those products end up getting spun out to like their own little world, being sold to then external teams, like external customers. I mean, like.
Yeah, exactly. And then their needs overrides our needs basically, and it makes the creation of a new team, and then we have to build a whole platform team from almost ground zero.
Interesting. So I would say that there's a chance that your organization is using the term platform in a slightly different way. So I was at an organization, my last organization, I was on what they call the foundations team.
Oh, okay.
Because the platform team was the platform that it provides end customer value. So the term platform was not the internal platform, it was an external product. And it sounds to me like maybe that's how the term is being used in your organization.
Yeah, that could be.
Possibly. So possibly like, this is where it's really fun to be someone who kind of crosses boundaries sometimes, because what you'll find is that everybody in the different specialties are all doing the same thing, but they all are using different words. So what you might be able to do is take from platform engineering concepts, online, searching for them and things, but maybe create a term that makes sense for your organization. So they say if foundations make sense, that was the term that was used at my previous organization. But the key here is that there should be an internal platform being built. Now, I've used the term in the singular a lot throughout this talk, like you'll have a platform built by the platform team. But in reality, depending on the scale of your organization, it's very common to have multiples of that. So you'll have a platform team that focuses on compute. So all they do is virtual machines and Kubernetes, and a platform team that focuses on CI/CD. That all they do is like Jenkins and GitHub Actions and whatever else. And then another one that focuses on databases and so on. And they need to provide a coherent experience across them for the organization. So the platform is composed of those different specialty teams. So again, whether you should use the term platform at your organization, it sounds like maybe that's already a taken term, and that's okay. Yeah. You just need to talk about the concepts and the deliverables.
Yeah, it has to be verified, definitely.
Yeah. It sounds slightly different, but you know,
you
from the outside.
You are on a good cause there, I would say so. Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Maybe a last one.
Making you work for it.